Welcome to Unlock 360, the podcast for champions of public education. Here we explore the connection between leadership, teaching, and learning, and reveal the keys to getting better results for all students. Each episode highlights a change maker who's turning vision into action and creating schools where both educators and students thrive. Hey everyone, welcome back. I am your host, Wendy York Davoud. Today's guest is Superintendent Rhett Ladner of Hancock County Schools District in Mississippi. Mr. Ladner, you are the very first educational leader to join our show from the Magnolia State or the Hospitality State, whichever one floats your boat. Welcome to Unlock 360.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here and excited about being here.
It's exciting to have you on the show. For our audience, as the Superintendent of Hancock County School District, Rhett leads the district's strategic direction, instructional initiatives, and organizational culture. He's responsible for overseeing multiple schools, managing district operations, and implementing data-driven improvement strategies focused on student achievement and staff engagement. Additionally, Mr. Ladner serves on the Board of Trustees for Pearl River Community College, leveraging the commitment to education at both K-12 and higher ed levels. It's exciting to have you on this show, Rhett. Will you share a bit about your journey that led you to becoming the superintendent of Hancock?
Oh, wow. It starts a long time ago. This is my 34th year actually in education. I actually grew up here in Hancock County, graduated from Hancock North Central way back in 1988, as my children call it, the late 1900s. In that process, I guess I had people that poured into me and as educators, and we'll talk a little bit about them later, but just changed my trajectory. I went to Pearl River Community College, spent time there, University of Southern Mississippi, and became a teacher. I wanted to be a history teacher. That's what I wanted to be. When I got into education, I figured out quickly if I wanted to be a history teacher, then I was going to have to be a coach also. And so I became a football, basketball, baseball coach, all those things, and loved teaching. It was one of my favorite things to do in the world. Spent 7 years doing that. I had a superintendent at the time that had seen the things I was doing in the classroom. And she was like, it's really phenomenal, your instruction and those types of things and your leadership. I'd love to get you into administration. So jumped into that administration role as a principal. I was a K-8 principal actually starting out. And there was a school in the district that the state was about to come in and take over. It was a level 1 at the time. And I said, I want to go there. And she says, are you crazy? Because at the time she had hired me to be her superintendent. That was my first administrative role over federal programs. And I was like, no, I want to go be a principal. And so I jumped into that role and it was very stressful, very, very hard. And only people I had really to look back on as principals were my previous principals growing up. And, they were kind of driving, get things done. And I thought I had that as well. And having my coach mentality, that's the way I was as well. And which we did really great. We were able to move the school. We almost became a level 5 school, did really well. So superintendent we had a superintendent's training. She saw what I'd done at the elementary school, and the high school was kind of a little low. So he said, I'd love to move you to the high school. And we did the same thing, but I hated what I was doing. It was just, there was no connection. I had the data piece and I had the kind of flow of what we needed to do to grow, and not the connection piece, but just the hammer and let's go kind of thing.
Would you say,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, I'm curious about that. So hold your train of thought and where you are in your journey. Would you say that it was like the management piece that you had that down, but it was the leadership piece that was?
Yes, definitely. I thought, I thought management was leadership.
Okay.
You put everything in the boxes and you work on this box and you kind of have that sequence of things that has to happen for progress. And I guess what I learned in that part was you can do those things in the boxes and you can move an organization, but you will never achieve to a place where people feel like they're part of something special, getting things done. And that's where I was. And I didn't enjoy it at all. And so my alma mater reached out to me. They had a high school, the high school here in our district reached out to me, or the superintendent here in my home district reached out to me and said, we need a high school principal. We'd love for you to come. We've seen your results. And it was all about results. People seeing the data and saying, oh, this is great. And they hired me because of my data. So I came here and I thought it would fill the hole in my heart, winning thing that everybody wants to feel. And I came here a year and we had some success. We moved some things in a year, and I still didn't feel that peace inside of me that I was searching for, that I felt when I was teaching. And so I started looking at private industries and things and interviewing for jobs outside of education, which I got one. I was going to be the historian for the museum here at NASA. So Hancock County, where we're located, we're about 45 miles east of New Orleans, right on the Mississippi-Louisiana line, right on the Gulf Coast. We say we're the west coast of Mississippi. Our accents kind of sound a little different than the west coast, but the main one of the main industries here is NASA. As far as NSTL, they test all the engines. They used to be for the space shuttles, but all the Artemis rockets and everything come through Hancock County.
I did not know this. Okay, good to know.
So I was going there to be the museum curator. That would have been so exciting, I'm sure. But right before that, I had a gentleman that worked for Jostens, my Jostens ring rep. He kept trying to go to this conference thing called Renaissance, and I went and saw it, and it talked about putting connections together, like not just doing the data piece, but it was about taking care of people, almost going to the athletic side of things when we give Letterman jackets, those things viewable, tangible, walk aroundable, that actually the way people feel, and not just students, but staff as well. And this word is staffulty, because we believe that every adult teaches in our school, from the cafeteria, custodians. We learn from everyone. So we use the word staffulty. And so taking that, it changed my whole trajectory. I started loving what I did. I could take the data piece, and what I realized in that piece was, as a teacher, I was connected to my students and I had those relationships with my students. But when I got into the leadership side of things, I thought that didn't happen. Like with the adults that we work, our colleagues, I thought there had to be this line there. I had a bookkeeper at the time at Hancock High School, and she told me one day, because she had gone to this Renaissance thing with us and everything, and she said, "Boss," and she's from New Orleans, and she's like, a really heavy New Orleans accent, and she was like, "Boss, she said, you got a really great personality." She said, "But you just act stupid." She said, "Hey," she said, "you ain't got to be all that." She said, "You got to be like people and the people," and it changed my whole trajectory once that happened. And I started loving what I did. And so I was principal there for several years. Went over to the Jackson County, the East Coast of Mississippi, just to kind of get a different view of things. Became assistant superintendent in Pascagoula Gaucher School District. And then I retired in 2022,
Okay, all right.
at June of 2022, and went to work for my oldest son selling artificial turf. I was fishing one morning, and it was a job, but I still didn't feel like a connection. Like I wasn't saving the world. It wasn't a mission. You kind of get older and you think, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Well, Hancock County at that time needed an interim superintendent. They were looking for a superintendent and they needed an interim. And I was fishing and they called me and said, "Hey, we need your interim. Would you be interested?" I called my son and I said, "Hey, I know I'm working for you," but and he's like, "Dad, that's what you've always been called to do." So I came back. And so August of 20, I guess it was 2022, I came into this job I'm sitting in now.
It's a beautiful story, and yeah, and there are a couple of things that you shared, that sparked questions for me, or thoughts. So, first, I thought I read something in your background about you initially wanting to go into criminal justice.
I did, yes.
What led you?
When I was at Pearl River Community College, I was looking for something cool. I wanted to be something to like mission and save the world kind of that. So I was doing criminal justice. And once I got into it, I had a teacher that I had when I was at Hancock High School that really poured into me, that changed my life as well. And when I was looking at the criminal justice, we had to go to a prison like on a internship sabbatical thing. And I was like, man, like it was very depressing. It would be so much better to be on the front end of this and change the world before they get to this point. That's when I changed my I guess major at that time.
That makes sense, yes, and then the other thing that just a thought, so I'm kinda all over the place, I know. Bear with me, my audience is used to this. So another thought that, as you were sharing how you just weren't feel you weren't really being fulfilled and you weren't happy in those first, 6 years, I think it was, and
Administration.
I made a connection to John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership, and now I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but if I recall a level 1 leader is position, it's just the title that, makes you a leader, which really doesn't make you a leader in and of itself, right? Level 2 is like, n now you have people like you. Level 3 is you're getting results, and it sounds like that's kinda where maybe you were at
Yes.
before the Jostens experience and, some experience with staff members, like, level 4 is where you begin to empower others as leaders, and I think level 5 is a transformational leader, which some of us strive to get to, but, maybe never fully get there, but
Still working to get to that part. Sure. Yes.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so I just made that connection, met some ones, as well, folks that just let their position carry them through and think that makes them a leader. So it is awesome that you were getting results, but if you weren't being fulfilled, if you weren't, that your passion wasn't being sparked and you weren't able to connect with others, that would be hard. Yeah, I'm glad.
And I do think that's one of the things I look back on my career and think during that time that I was not sparking those people or fulfilling their desire to be world changers either. That they were probably more doing the things that I was pushing them to do because I was pushing them and I wasn't the boss.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. One of the pieces that you and I talked about just a bit before the show that you mentioned there in your journey and that I think our audience would benefit from is learning a little bit more about Jostens Renaissance. I, I think most folks do think of cap and gowns and class rings when they think of Jostens. Will you tell us a bit about Renaissance?
I think one of the things there before I knew what it was, my rep had reached out to me and he was like, "Hey, this Johnson's Renaissance thing." And I told him, I was like, "Phil, I don't want to buy another program." Like, and he's like, "This is not a program. It's not a program." And I didn't even know this existed. It's, I guess, a component of Johnston's school culture and climate. So it's free to all schools. It's out there, and there's a monthly playbook that goes along for all schools that is laid out there. Their website is there, so schools can go there and get all these ideas and everything. And it's really just for educators, and it's a business model also because they believe, the more kids that graduate, the more caps and gowns they sell. Better the school culture is. So back in the 80s, there was a school out in Conway, South Carolina that created this thing. And in that process, the Jostens rep saw how great it was. So Jostens kind of created that as part of their company. It blew me away in that process, but it's based on the 6 R's. And that's really what we run our district off of now on the culture side. So, like, the first R is respect. Like, what do you respect as a school district? Is it attendance? Is it kindness? Is it behavior, academic achievement? So once you decide what you respect, then you start looking at how to reward the people that are doing what you respect as a district. And then the third R is recognizing people. Everybody can be recognized. There's recognition. And one of the best things we do birthday things for everybody in our district. So every school is required to do that. And, we spend time PLC wise on the culture piece. When you look at why kids come to school and why teachers teach, get something in the morning and says, "I can't wait to go to school because I got new curriculum about relationships and, all those things." So we do that. So the birthdays is one of our big things. When I was principal at Van Cleve Middle School, I had my student leadership, my REN crew. They came to me and they was like, "Mr. Ladner, we want to do birthdays and cupcakes for every kid on the campus. How can we do that? You got that's a big undertaking." And they're like, "No, we got an idea. Every the last day of the month in the cafeteria, we'll have cupcakes, and we'll have a list of names of everybody's birthday this month. And everybody's birthday it is this month, they come up and get a cupcake. Then the cafeteria will sing happy birthday. And I was like, that's really great. But where are we going to get the cupcakes from? And they're like, we got that figured out too. We've already got teachers that have volunteered. So we started doing that because everybody needs to be recognized. They need to feel valued. They need to be seen, heard, and loved. And so we did it. And Timothy McLemore, this kid that was in eighth grade, he comes up to me at the end of lunch and he says, Mr. Ladner, this is the first birthday cake I ever got. I'm like, "Ooh," we're doing this all the time. But just in the recognition piece, you're recognizing all people. We value you. So that's 3 R's. And then if you do those 3 R's, then it reinforces, like those 2 R's reinforce what you respect. And then the 5th R is the biggest R of all. That's the relationship piece. Look in relationships, like just like staffulty meetings. We have staffulty meetings where we want you to play games. We expect our administrators to have food and play games with their teachers and to enjoy each other's company, to build relationships. And if you do all those 5, then the 6 R, you get results. And that's what everybody wants to see. So, and I will tell you, our graduation rate this year, over the last 3 years of doing this, we have the highest graduation rate we've ever had in the district.
That's awesome.
Our chronic absenteeism has dropped from 27% to 17%. We've moved from, we were number 48 district overall in the state academically. We're 22.
Congratulations. Okay, that's big.
We've been an A-level district for the last 3 years. Our ACT scores, and this is one of the things I'm really proud of because this is what puts kids in college. Our junior ACT score composite, that means every kid in our district from special education all the way through takes the ACT. So right now, our composite is at 20 point, I think, 4. We're the 4th highest ACT score in the state of Mississippi for juniors.
Nice.
So all those things, our staffulty attendance is 95%. So all those things, we're putting all those things together. And so that's happened. And I know that's a lot, but I love the.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So a couple of things I'm curious because um, back when I was still a teacher in the school district, actually I was transitioning from classroom teacher to literacy coach, a secondary literacy coach position at a 7th and 8th grade junior high in Southern California. We were a really large junior high. We served about 13 to 1,400 kids at the time in just those, 2 grade levels. And we had, an ASB program for students to be leaders in that particular leadership program. And we were looking for something more. We were just kind of starting the capturing kids' hearts movement, and somehow, kind of came across my desk that there was this program called Jostens Renaissance, and that I should look into it, that it may be a way to expand leadership development for students on campus. And so I did attend, I want to say it was a regional conference, and I may have visited a couple of schools that weren't too terribly far away, that I could commute to get a sense of what it was like. Maybe I think I attended a rally or 2, and so that was kinda all I had, but I launched that program and was teaching a 6 period assignment, serving as a literacy coach in, 5 periods of the day, and that 6th period was a leadership class, that was Renaissance. It was called Renaissance, and I didn't have a program or a curriculum, so to speak, so it was kind of up to me.
And you will love this because now they have a written curriculum. That's all there.
Do they? I mean, that I'm trying to think, I wanna say this was 2007, might have been 2008, so it was a while ago. I love the 7 Habits framework, and so picked up some 7 Habits for, preteen books and, uh, had that kinda serve as our curriculum while our job was really recognizing and rewarding and celebrating students and staff and throwing these fun rallies that would be like something the school had never done before, where instead of having, Rhett Ladner, please come to the stage and get your certificate. Yeah, it wasn't like, yeah, it was just totally different. And so I had so much fun, and the relationships that I built across the school, but also with those students, each year that were part of that leadership, it was awesome, and it really, coupled with capturing kids' hearts, our movement to becoming a Renaissance school, really changed the culture of that campus.
Well, and I do think that's part, like taking all that and putting together, because I've been through the, the 7 effective habits. I've been through
Yes.
capturing kids' hearts. I've been through all of those as well, and trying to put all that together. When you start talking about certificates, I have to laugh because I'm gonna hold this up. This is my daughter's, all her certificates, her
Okay.
high school stuff. So I always take those when I go speak or whatever and talk about that viewable, tangible, and walk aroundable. And you said that about come get your certificate. Like that never changes kids' behaviors. Like you've never seen after one of those a kid walk down the hallway with their certificate saying, "Woo, look what I got." And the kid that's not before, I've got to do better because I want a piece of paper.
It was really awesome. So when I saw that in your background, I was excited to talk to you about it a bit as well. And you've mentioned several results or outcomes that are very positive. I'm curious if there's a specific moment that you can think of when you realized that these this culture building, that this movement was directly impacting results.
I think whenever, and kind of over my shoulder, you can see the young lady in the cap and gown. So when I first met Michelle, I was the principal of Hancock High School my first year, and she was a 17-year-old ninth grader. And I had played basketball with her father. She had struggled through high school, and I'd made a commitment. I was not giving up on Michelle. Um, and I would have her in the conference room and she would cuss at me and I wanted to cuss at her, but I didn't want to get fired. Um, you're gonna do this. So we kept getting it. And then the culture piece kicked in of the relationship piece. It wasn't like yelling and it wasn't that argument anymore. She became part of different clubs and things that we had going on because we took bells out. We had music that played between classes. We had Success Fest with karaoke. We had all these things going on, and she was part of that. Well, when she graduated at 21 years old, she was the cocktail waitress at the Hollywood Casino, but she was still coming to school. Our seniors chose the senior that overcame the most, and we wear blue gowns, but that senior gets to wear a white gown to sign by all the seniors. And Michelle got that cap and gown.
That's awesome.
We did that night at graduation, and it was a Gangnam Style or whatever at the time. So we had set up, we were going to do that, and we did it after the formal graduation was over because we didn't want people to get mad. We didn't want to do it in the middle, and we had 400 graduates, and so this flash mob starts happening, and parents and everybody doesn't know what's going on, and we didn't practice, and they just all are like out in the middle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna get so fired. uh, I didn't know where it was going. Well, right toward the end of the music, all our seniors go back to their chairs and they're standing there like nothing happened. Like there was no, I was like, okay, finally got to this point to where, it matters.
Yeah.
Our seniors walk across the stage and they hand you something like the superintendent or principal. When you're shaking their hand, they're handing you things. And usually pennies or something. It just doesn't matter for the previous to this. But that year they handed us puzzle pieces. And over on my cabinet over there, I still have this. And once you got all the puzzle pieces, you put it together. It was a composite of their senior class. And a couple of pieces missing. And, I was like, hey, we're missing pieces. And they're like, Mr. Ladner, that's for the people that didn't make it to graduation. It's like, okay, we got there now.
Rhett, oh my gosh, you're touching my heart. You're gonna make me cry.
That's when I knew I was like, oh, this is really what matters. And, you know, people don't remember chemistry. They remember how we treat them and they remember what we do for them. And that's what it's all about. And more so also in our staffulty, like we focused on children a lot and we should. But if you look at how many people are leaving teaching, and they're not leaving really for the money, they're not leaving, they're leaving because they don't feel like they're part of something special. So we got to create that.
Okay, and have you seen a change in staff retention?
We employ 635 employees, 299 certified, and right now at this time we have 12 openings. So, which has been phenomenal. We first started, 3 years ago. We were probably sitting at 23%, and we're sitting at probably 6% now.
Okay. All right. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so we put in some incentive pay also for our staffulty as well. So if we're an A-level district, then every staffulty member certified gets $1,000 incentive check on December 31st, right after Christmas. And our non-certified, every bus driver, custodian, cafeteria worker, they get a $500 check. So we want to show that we value them.
Good. Okay. That's awesome too. I love this so much. Rhett, so thinking speaking of, like, staff retention, I think a lot of the times we think of, the classified staff or their certificated staff serving in a classroom setting or in a support setting within a school building when it comes to leadership, and while we believe that all of those folks are leaders, just as you believe that they're all teachers, we believe they're also all leaders. They're influencing children all the time, and many of them influencing their colleagues as well. You know, retaining them has been also a challenge, and we see a big, kind of shift in it seems like, I know at least in the state of Texas, and I'm kinda hearing in some other states as well, a lot of turnover in superintendents, superintendency lately. And so there's quite a few newer people entering into those upper level management leadership roles. What would you say to someone who is maybe stepping into the role and skeptical of the culture work and maybe hesitant to put in the time and investment in that alongside the academic pressures that they may be feeling from state accountability, local accountability measures?
I think the first thing I would say is it's going to be very hard. That's the first thing. When I took over this job, I had a whole different idea of what it was going to be. And I will say sometimes in my fear, I regress back to my old self. This past year was one great example of it that when my first year here, we went from 48 to number 18 in the state. The next year we went from 17, and this past year we went back to 22nd. And I went into my reptile brain of fear and trying to drive people, and you know even our teachers, our faculty, teachers, my core leadership team. For the first probably 2 months of school, I was not very nice to be around.
Okay. This school year?
This school year, yeah. So I went back to my old self of driving and trying to control everything, and because that's where we go as you know as educators. We think work harder. Probably Generation X, Boomer. We just have to work harder. We'll get better. And realizing that that's not the world we live in anymore. And I kind of had to go back and look at what we were doing, and the results happen when you take care of people, because you're going to want to go to the easy things, the PLCs on data, all those things. But if people are not bought in, they'll be there for a year or so. They're going to go find a place where they feel like they're valued and they feel like they're part of a team. And I think telling whoever's coming into that role, there are not a lot of people getting into education, and the people that are want to be part of something special.
That's right.
Because I always talk to my leadership team about the BlackBerry and where we are in education right now. If we don't adapt and we don't change, because the world we live in now is not the world we lived in that I grew up in.
Yeah.
And if we don't adapt, then we become the BlackBerry phone. That's why I still have mine in my bag, because I love the rolling ball and the trackball.
You might have loved yours more than me because I don't think I still have mine, but yes, that was an awesome phone.
But they did not adapt to
Right.
the world. And so in that, they became obsolete.
Mhm.
And we will too in education. We've got school choice, you got all these things that we're fighting now. You got people who look at public education and they say, it's not meeting the needs of my children. It's not. And sometimes I have to say we're not, because we're here to give hope to our faculty, hope to our children that they're going to get a better life if they're part of this.
I think you keep using a word that I have not heard before. Staffulty? Is that
Yes. So that is every adult in the building taking staff and faculty. Like, we typically have a staff meeting or faculty meeting, different levels. So that's kind of a Renaissance kind of thing too, and just putting them together into staffulty. It drives my English. It's not a real word. So maybe it will one day. But yeah, it's every adult being a teacher.
Everybody being a team and part of the team, and yes, got it, okay, I like that too.
Yeah, so we use that term, and like I said, my English teachers, they like, but,
As part of the culture.
part of the culture. So even our kids say it now, so it's pretty cool.
Okay, that is pretty cool, yeah. I love that too. One of the other pieces, Mr. Ladner, that I read about in kind of researching your background was the Staff Advisory Council. Will you tell us about that?
So we have a lot of different advisory councils, I will tell you. We have a faculty advisory, we have a parent advisory, we have a student advisory, I have a clergy advisory, and a realtor advisory also. Because I wanna sometimes we think we're making great decisions, we get these educator brains, and especially with me, we're gonna do this, and this, and we don't know the ripple effect on each group. So it's important for us to get input from those groups. I will tell you, and I told you earlier, yeah, I kind of went into my reptile brain earlier in the year, and we got to get better. So I came up with this idea of we do trying to honor faculty. We do an early release every Wednesday, a 1 hour early release. We have our minutes on the other days to make up our instructional time,
Okay.
strictly for our PLCs, for our teachers, so they don't have to stay after school and they don't have to give up their planning time. So we have 4 elementaries, a high school, middle school. So the 4 elementaries, once a month, they work together via Zoom because we don't want them to have to travel everywhere. But the other 3 days, they're working with their grade levels and they're working with their other subject areas on their campuses. So it sounded like a great idea. We're going to take care of the staff, they don't have to, all that. But I didn't take it to my parent advisory, and parents were, you don't think through the, okay, a parent, what are they going to do with their children when they get off an hour early from school? So it impacted, and in my parent advisory, they told me, hey, you didn't think about this. And I should have brought it to you. So with that part, we try to get input, and I'm trying to do a better job of that part. Like every big decision now, we go through the ripple effect, and each group we talk to, but like our faculty advisory, they bring their concerns once a month to us. They also have everybody here has my cell phone number, but they can email me, contact me at any time, say, hey, we got this thing going on our campus. This is what it feels like. And so we have staff advisory leaders on every campus.
Okay.
And one of the things we vote on our calendar every year of what our instructional calendar will look like. So they get to choose holidays and things. Are we going to take a whole week off for Mardi Gras, or are we only taking 3 days? So all those types of things that we do. One of the big issues was the cleanliness of their rooms. And we were outsourcing our janitorial services, but all the data from our faculty advisory showed us that it wasn't very effective. So we were able to take that to our board, and it probably cost us an additional $120,000 a year to do it, but we brought our own people in
Okay.
because our faculty advisory felt like they would be part of our family, they would be part of our team, and we've been able to, like, our schools look phenomenal now. So they have those direct impacts on that.
Yeah, that's good. Now, were you outsourcing custodial services because of, like, a lack of did you have those positions before, or was that just the way the district has done it?
The way the district was running, it was really from a financial standpoint. For perspective, we were able to save, $100,000 a year. So the district was doing that, but the culture that and climate that it was creating on our campuses and from the instructional side, the bathrooms and all that just wasn't
Yeah.
very conducive.
Yeah. Well, I can see the difference it would make to bring them on, and now they're part of the staffulty as well. Rhett, if you were to, give advice to, like, what advice would you give someone, who may be new stepping into the superintendency in terms of, like, how to go about the first 100 days? Looking back, if you could do either do some things differently that may not have worked well for you, or do some things that did work well for you, like, what advice would you give them?
I think one of the things is trying to categorize or take a step back and be slow in the beginning to see where you truly are. Talk to people, assess where you are, get an overall assessment, and don't believe everything everyone tells you. First of all, talk to a lot of people, look and see what's happening. And I think that's one of the things I was kind of lucky in the sense I was the interim, so I wasn't the real guy.
Yeah, it gave you yeah, that would I could see how that could be an advantage.
So I got to kind of sit back and say, hey, I'm just kind of learning, I'm looking, and that's what we did. We talked to people, we brought in to get a really, I guess, good idea where the district was. And when I talk about categorizing, you got a box with culture, you got a box with instructional, all those boxes, because a lot of times people get into the Renaissance mode and say, "Oh, we're just going to party and have a great time and everything."
Yeah.
That's not it at all. It's you're doing the culture climate piece so you can do the instructional piece better, and you can't just focus on one. It's got to be all these different boxes, and sometimes you open this box up, sometimes you open that box up. So you got to get all those categories kind of in place, get a pulse of each one of those. Like on the instructional piece, we brought all our instructors in, or from each grade level, and we wanted to see what they were doing. And so we brought them in the room, each grade level from each elementary, and they had to write down on the instructional materials they were using on us,
Yeah, this is a fun exercise, isn't it?
and they couldn't talk. And
Okay.
what we figured out in that, just like an ELA, for example, we were using 88 different resources. One
Yeah,
thing I was like, whoa.
you are not alone. You are not
Yeah,
alone.
so I was like, oh my gosh, that's that box we've got to work on.
Yeah.
And so with my core leadership team, I have a core leadership team. We sat down and, you know, input from them of, how do we attack this? How do we get into this? And each one of these pieces, from the culture, climate to the instructional piece and curriculum, this is a big problem. So, we started looking at HQIMs because Mississippi is doing a really great job right now in the science of reading and where we are and where we're moving. So we started looking at all that and studying it, and we let teachers investigate. Teachers built this HQIM and they adopted it. So we were able to adopt it. So we focused on the instructional piece also. So, and instructional coaches. So trying to put all those pieces together. So just, again, I think for a new superintendent, get a lay of the land, talk to people, look at things, bring people in to, focus groups to get an idea. Then once you get that, in the first probably 30 days, 45 days, you're figuring out and building a plan of how you're going to attack each one of these things. And once you kind of get that done and figured out of what the issues are, then get input from people of how you're going to build something to address each one of those places that you have. People come in and they just want to change things.
Right.
And we spend so much energy trying to change everything that we get nothing accomplished.
Exactly.
So find out what your big rocks are in the jar. And once you figure out those big rocks, focus on those big rocks. And once you get that big rock taken care of, move on to your next biggest rocks. So don't get overwhelmed by the sand in the jar. That's one of my favorite things of, you can throw sand everywhere. It gets in your eyes, mouth, everywhere. But you got to figure out what those rocks are.
Yes, you do, and stay focused on those. You can't let the sand get in the way. Excellent analogy.
And don't have fear. Like a lot of people are scared of like the culture piece, and they're putting all that lovey dovey stuff and everything, but that's part of what we do. So don't let fear drive you either.
Good. Really sound advice. What would you say is next? Like, where are you heading now as a school district?
I think we've got our foundation laid pretty well. I think from this point, we started out getting our core values, and that may be one of the things, I guess, going back to that last question. We started with our core values as a district, and it took us a year to get them.
Okay.
And we use all our advisories, administrators, everything, because we had to get that base of start. And one of the things we found was talking to our kids, they were the smartest people in the room. Our whole thing is, we're Hawks. That's our mascot. So what do Hawks do? And one of the things we'd always, soar to greatness. And our kids were like, well, soaring's kind of lazy. It's kind of float around and
Okay.
we fly. Like we are all like to get to greatness. And that was one of the words we didn't want perfection. So people use the word excellence and they're like, Mr. Ladner, when we use the word excellent, that makes us think we can't do it. Everybody can be great if you work, not perfection. So that was one of the things we fly to greatness when we do these things.
And that came from the kids?
That came from the kids.
I mean, how profound is that? When, like, instead of a bunch of 30, 40, 50-year-olds sitting around the table or even 20-year-old, sitting around the table trying to figure out what to do for kids, like, ask the kids.
Oh yeah, it was, so we got into that and it was like when we protect the physical and well-being of all. And so I was like, wow, all those things. And so it goes through our core values. And that was the first thing we started with were core values. So every decision we make in our schools and what we do, we go through that and does it meet our core value? If not, it doesn't fit in anywhere. So we don't even bother thinking about it. So then we moved on to our mission statement. Kids were part of that. We had this big mission statement that it was like this. And we, the Hancock County School District, I don't even know all of it. And
Right.
they're like, once again, kids says, can we shorten this to where we know what it means and it means what we say? And I said, sure, let's talk about it. And so it says, we are in the Hancock County School District. And they're like, well, we're more than that. We're our grandparents, our families. So it became we are Hancock instead of we are the Hancock County School District.
Okay.
Then they went on, it had we are committed. And they said, committed means like you're committed to a mental institution. You have to do something. And, committed is like something you're not really doing with your heart. So they said, can we change that to dedicated? Because dedicated means we're dedicated to it. So we came up with we are Hancock and we are dedicated to graduating, motivating, and celebrating all. So that's our mission statement. So all those things of establishing that first, and then we have our vision. So that's kind of going through that process. So we go next. I think from our standpoint, we're working on a math HQIM, which are on the instructional side of things. We'll launch that this coming year.
Okay.
I think not making any more drastic changes. I think we've made changes. So now we've got to kind of get into this and make sure that we're working and it's working what we're doing and start tweaking those things that this is working, this is not working. So now that process, uh, not anymore just like turning everything over, just getting into where we can see what's working and what's not working.
Fantastic.
My staffulty would say, there's no way I'm saying that because I'm like the captain of chaos. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable when things are like calm. I like the anxiety of like what's happening. I've got to be better at just being calm now.
Recognizing that there's just so much power in recognizing that as a superintendent, it is really difficult not to chase all the shiny new objects. So there's a lot of power in that and staying the course and continuous improvement and getting better with what you've got.
And we're working those boxes like the safety piece. I will tell you, that was one of the biggest things when I came in. We had lost 2 students at an after prom party shooting.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And like I sat in on the debriefings with law enforcement and everything. And it wasn't our prom, it was a neighboring district's prom, but 2 of our kids got killed there. And but listening to what kids were saying in those like interviews was terrifying. So we started, moving on that core value of protecting the physical well-being. So we launched like some TG's badges where every one of our adults can shut down our school with the mash of a button.
Okay.
The alarm systems come on, strobe lights, sheriff's department, all those things, ballistic film, all these things that we did. So working those now and making sure that's working. So I guess that's where we're kind of headed.
That's great. No, thank you for sharing that. And, it just sounds like you've got really good things in place there. And I'm thinking, as things are shifting in our country, if someone is looking for a new place to call home and a new school district to either send their kiddos or to join to be a teacher or an administrator, where would they go to learn more?
We'd love to have them. We do all the job fairs. That's one of the things I love going. It makes me, I personally go to every job fair that we go to as far as our colleges and our state and neighboring states. Just for the fact I like talking to those kids. And I always tell them, you may not choose us, but find that place that you feel valued and you feel that is your home and that you feel that you want to make a home in. That's the thing. That's what I hope. And even people moving here or wherever they go, find that place that you can call home.
Yeah, and would they just go to your website then if to learn more? Is that where they could find the information?
I'll tell you, www.hancockschools.net.
Okay,
We have there and all our Facebooks, like we use Facebook a lot in our district.
okay.
We have a huge social media presence with Facebook. All our schools is really cool because our elementaries are like West Hancock Elementary, North Hancock Elementary, East Hancock Elementary, South Hancock Elementary. So they're all the way around Hancock High School and Hancock Middle School. So we have a big presence there. We're trying to keep our parents connected. So
Okay, good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then I guess last but not least, I in reflecting on season 4 of the podcast and thinking about a fun way to end the show in season 5, I thought, what if we just did like some recognition or some shout out to someone who has, had a real impact on your life as an educator or as a leader in education. I think that as teachers, as administrators, as coaches, whatever staffulty hat you may wear, sometimes, the joy and the gratitude comes from just what we experience, right? And it's good to hear it. So, who might you wanna recognize and why?
it would be Coach Mike Haley. When I was in high school, my mom and dad had gone through a divorce. My mom was, basically raising us. She was a school secretary. She was retired after 34 years. But at that point in time, I really didn't have any hope of going to college, or I didn't really know what I was going to do. And he poured into me my senior year, just and showed me there was a better life, better way of doing things. He built a relationship, and I was a CD student probably all the way through school. I'm in the principal's office. I had ADD and didn't know what it was then. I got paddled a lot, and so Coach Haley saw something different in me. He was a history teacher, and man, I just loved going to his class every day. And, we talking about criminal justice. I thought I was going to just save the world that way. And then when I saw what that was all about, I realized that I wanted to be Coach Haley. I wanted to pour into people and I wanted to make connections and I wanted to save the world that way.
Yeah.
Life. He passed away several years ago, but I always got to tell him how, I always kept a relationship with him even after high school. So, um,
That's awesome. Coach Mike Haley, I hope your nose is itching in heaven, because someone's thinking about you and, your family. I hope someone tunes in and hears this. Such a beautiful story, and, thank you, Rhett Ladner, for being on our show today.
thank you, Wendy. It was a privilege. Thank you.
And that's a wrap, everybody. Till next time. Thank you for joining us on Unlock 360. If this conversation sparked new thinking, share it with a colleague and keep the dialogue going in your school district. Public education is complex work, and progress happens when leadership and teaching move together. I'm Wendy York Davoud. Until next time, keep building the systems that unlock what's possible, because strong leadership drives deeper learning.